All right. Oh,
Okay, we are now live.
all right.
um, all right. Cameron, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Carson, how are you, mate?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's been fun. I feel like so I don't know if there's a lot of vegan YouTube channels that get started up here and there, but I feel like since I start, oh, I'm getting an echo.
Oh my God.
Um, I feel like since I started about 2 months ago, there's a handful of maybe like a dozen and a half channels that kind of all started up around the same time when Cosmic Skeptic did his thing.
Yes.
And it's fun to watch us all grow and and get various amounts of subscribers and get seeing the same names even of people that aren't in the group I'm talking about, like that don't make videos, all in the comments of all of our videos, and
Oh,
then
absolutely.
various people making songs about veganism and all that.
There's some
um,
good songs, yeah.
so yeah, it's fun to watch it go. You are one of the first channels I came across when I started, and then Christina Van
Yeah.
Beek.
And Beak, yeah.
She's been fun to follow along with, and turning
Turning Veganese. Yep.
veganese. Yeah, I think my head. I want to say veganese because like the vegan
I,
mayonnaise, but
I think
it's
I think
clearly
we've all been
referring
there.
to the Japanese but veganese. Um,
I dig the name of his channel actually.
yeah. No, it's cool. It's just it always throws me off when I try to say it.
No, that's all good.
Yeah. Well, and then vegan pundit's been here the whole time since my first video. I think he was the first comment,
Yeah, he's
and so
he's he's been pretty supportive on my channel too. Which
yeah.
how are
So it's
you,
been
Mr. Pundit?
yeah. And he, a decent bit of credit goes to him for the vegan gains debate finally going through and happening because he kept bugging Richard about that. So,
Oh, good on him.
so
Good
that
man.
so that's pretty cool. But yeah, okay. Well, yeah. Before we get into the few questions that we have from some people, I did have a question for you. So I have a different channel that I talk about politics and philosophy, and I
Yeah.
did a couple vegan things over there. And right when the shit went down with Alex, I started making videos defending him, and I started
Right.
making so many vegan videos on that channel that I knew I had to have my own separate vegan channel. So I made this. So
Yes.
Reasonable Vegan, it basically exists because of Alex O'Connor. Is that
I,
the time
I
you started, or did you make videos before that?
I think that's a time a lot of people got started actually. Like I think I've had the idea to start a vegan YouTube channel. I just didn't know what I was going to do, and I actually do think that that could have pushed me over the edge to sort of start making um vegan content because it was just before he released his actual video that I started making videos. So I think I actually do think that that did have a part to do with coming over. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I think
Cool.
I felt a little bit annoyed at the time. I was, because he was such a good voice for the animals, and then he decided to
Mhm.
step away, which is very disappointing. It freaking, it hit me emotionally a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is irritating. I was glad to see that you were one of the few channels that reacted in somewhat of a positive light the way I did towards Alex, at least at the idea of vegans asking fellow vegans to not make us all look bad as far as how we react to him and to use kindness.
Yeah, I mean, my point of view might have changed a little bit since then, but
Mm.
I still think like we want to come across as at least intelligent when we're speaking about the subject, even if we have to be a bit harsh sometimes. I still think the intelligence, or just yeah,
Yeah,
coming across as good as good, I suppose.
gotcha. Um, Let's see. Okay, Vegan Pundit said, I updated my questions on that post asking for them after an exchange with Jeremy. Huh. Let, let me see. Yeah, Vegan Pundit, we were going to go over your question about the definition. Was there, you said you updated it, but is there a different approach you want us to take with the question? I'm going to look at the update right now to see if I know what you're talking about. Let's see.
Or did he edit it on the channel? Did he?
I'm going to it right now. Let's see. Um, be updated. Okay, it looks the same to me. So if he says anything here in the comments as
Yeah,
an
yeah,
update, we can change that. But before
absolutely.
before we go into that, did you watch my vegan gains debate last night?
I caught it a little bit late, but once I started watching it, I watched it to the
I,
end. Yeah.
I was thinking you might have been there, but I wasn't sure. Were you there when I was asking everybody to say what they would do to Richard's question about if you could press a button to end Alex O'Connor's life? Would you do it?
Yeah, I think I heard that, but I might have lacked context because I wasn't there from the beginning. So if yeah, yep. So is there a certain amount of context behind that, or
Yeah, well, so the idea is just, I mean, you could apply it to anybody that is currently actively not vegan, but the question maybe boils down to if you were standing outside and you saw somebody eating a burger and you
right?
could press a button and have them just die and they'd be dead and nobody would know about it, would you do that? And I guess we have to assume that because I think it's good to talk in philosophical terms and to be
Hmm.
honest, but there's also ways we'd want to talk to not make veganism look bad. No matter what, if somebody says the Richard route, which is they'd press the button to have them die, that existing for the world to see makes veganism look bad. So that does suck. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't want that to be an approach. If I felt the same way as him, I wouldn't go talk to non vegans and talk like that. But when talking with fellow vegans and breaking things down to honest opinions, I think it's worth talking about. So, anyways, is there any, if not Alex, is there any level of an action somebody can do in Australia or in the US in somewhere where in our current day it's legal to do a thing? Does the legality affect whether you would personally want them deceased or not?
Well, that's a difficult question. I don't know. Like I personally wouldn't want to push a button to take anybody's life myself.
Mhm.
But what you're telling me is, if I don't push the button, then these people will continue, supporting the death of hundreds of animals and whatnot. So it would kind of make sense to push that button, but at the same time, I
Mhm.
wouldn't want to push it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. It's a tough, wild question for sure. Um, okay. So Vegan Pundit said that he added
That's a
more
good
info for
definition.
clarity, and I think we both saw that clarity. So we didn't see the original question, but now we saw the clarity. Either that or the clarity is in the comments. But anyways, Vegan Pundit asked the question: should the vegan society definition of veganism be updated, and then why? So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've seen this question going around a lot lately, actually. Um, I suppose there is a bit of wiggle room, for people to, um, make excuses and stuff for, consuming animals. So, let's see. But I don't know I don't know what the definition would look like myself. I think that would be something that would have to be discussed amongst a lot of people. Um,
Yeah.
like the most of the core parts of the definition are good, but maybe just as
Yeah.
far as
Well,
possible impact. Yeah.
for the few people watching now, I'll just read the main intro to it, which is veganism is a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude, um, as far as possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, and any other purpose. Um,
I think one thing that they should probably add in there is just, giving the rights to the animals, just the rights to their lives and not to be exploited, perhaps.
mm,
What do you think?
um, So I kind of take an opposite approach. I think the definition itself should have more leniency, and then when we individually like talk about it, then we can talk with each other about how we feel. So
Mm.
I've been working on writing what I think should be the definition. while realizing I was wrong about the definition.
Right.
I wrote a definition that almost ended up being exactly the Vegan Society definition, and I didn't realize that the definition here had the word seeks in it. And I think
Right.
the word seeks to exclude, the word seeks in there, changes everything, because I think the definition should be referring to a philosophy where essentially anybody that what's the word I'm looking for? What I'm just failing. I wrote it down right
Lost
here.
for words, mate.
So here's my definition. I wrote veganism is a philosophy that seeks to extend moral consideration to non-human animals on the basis of actions unwanted by each animal, such as harm and physical force. But the main important element I was writing in mine was a philosophy that seeks to extend moral consideration. And so I feel like it basically means that if you are part of the philosophy that is veganism, if you hold that true to, like, that philosophy is the philosophy that you hold to yourself, then it just means that when we think of empathy, we think of it connected to non-human animals. And so even somebody that like has grown up eating meat and thinking it's normal and has not become vegan, if they were to see somebody punch a cow in the face, so no connection to like eating the animal, if they were to think that was sad, I would think that they are just kind of uneducated, or at least have not thought it through, but they are vegan. They are vegan because they do not lack the ability for empathy. And so I think it would stretch out to a large amount of humans. And I kind of want to just welcome them into our group.
Right. Yeah. That is a bit of a strange way of looking at it. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. So what you would say is, like, despite the fact that they consume animal products, maybe they wear leather or something like that, you would still refer to them as vegan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I want to. And maybe I need to have a distinction between somebody being vegan and somebody having the philosophy of veganism.
Yeah.
But I think I need to think it through further. But comparing it to other movements, other philosophies, so you essentially, you can have moral philosophies and you can have like religious philosophies, and you can have various different groups. But for some reason, veganism, it's almost held to a standard where you have to do these certain acts, otherwise you are not it. Where something like, say, like a religion like Christianity, now, the difference between that and a typical philosophy would be a faith-based element. So if you remove the faith-based element, then you just have the philosophy of what's considered good or not. But somebody being a Christian doesn't mean that they have to follow everything within the religion. We think of those people as what a Christian might call a bad Christian.
Right.
Like if you have sex before you're married, it's not like you're all of a sudden not a Christian. You just are a Christian that is going against an element of the philosophy. And so if somebody seeks to extend moral consideration to animals, and maybe something gets in the way, I would say what gets in most people's way would be probably something like addiction. A lot of people wouldn't use the word addiction when referring to meat and dairy. Sometimes people consider cheese an addiction and why it's hard for them to fully go vegan even when they want to. But I would consider anything where you want to do it, you think it's the best approach. I know a lot of people that think veganism is right and that they'll never do it because they were raised on it. And so I view that as kind of like a bad Christian, a bad vegan. They want to do it. They know it's right. It's the philosophy they hold true. But they just know they don't have the willpower to pass up addictive commercials for Carl's Jr. or McDonald's.
Right. Yeah, well, I think especially if you do know what's going on, like you know that it's the right decision, even if it's difficult. I do think that if you are not making those steps to become vegan and stop consuming and buying the products that is causing the exploitation, I do think yeah, I don't think I agree with you on that one.
Mm.
um yeah, I think there could be some, back to the definition, I think there could be some changes now that I'm thinking about it. The Sikhs part maybe is something that I might remove, so something
Yeah.
which excludes as far as possible, perhaps would be a
Yeah.
better definition on my from my point of view.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the thing I wanted to change that I think most people are not in favor of the Sikhs element. And since I
Yep.
didn't know that was there, I wanted to add this thing that I thought if whichever vegans would ever hear me talk about adding it would think I'm crazy. But then it turns out that it's part of the the actual definition,
It's already there, yeah.
which doesn't make it right necessarily. David Ciarnes was telling me that to be a vegan, you need to follow, like, the movement was created by people that created a definition. You have to follow that definition or else you're not that. You should create a new label. And it's funny, I actually strongly disagree with him. We should, things evolve over time.
Absolutely.
And people are portions of movements without being the whole thing. I am most strongly aligned with libertarianism out of all the political parties, but there are elements that I strongly do not align with libertarianism, and that would be something like maybe the situation you're born into. If somebody has a lack of intelligence, I think their society needs to take care of them, which is not part of libertarianism. But anyways, so if I want to talk to David again because I want to point out to him that the thing that he's holding dear, which is this definition, with the word Sikhs in there, it completely undermines his stance on it, and I could see why a lot of vegans would want to remove the word Sikhs. For sure.
Is that definition the same definition he's referencing, or is that
Yeah.
because this is a newer definition, isn't it? The one we've been talking about. I was under the assumption that he was talking about a different definition for some reason.
So according to him, there's this original definition, which is what I just read, that I believe goes all the way up to animals for food, clothing, and any other purpose. And then that was in the 50s or 60s. And then like a couple decades later, so maybe 70s or 80s, I think they added the element of, and by extension promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefits of humans and environment. So I think those are both officially parts of the original definition, but I think that first part that has Sikhs, I think that was there from the start.
That was there from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I suppose it was a different time too. So like I don't agree that something should stay the same just because it was the original definition. The definition needs to be the best definition that would support the animals at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Vegan Pundit says that your audio is fluctuating a bit. I noticed it does a little bit, but not enough that it was worth mentioning in my mind. But I don't know. Maybe if it was a tiny bit louder, that could be
How's
better.
that? Is that better? Or turn the gain up a little bit. Cool.
Okay, yeah, that sounds better.
Right, well, let me know if it
seemed like it might have been like you turning your head in between sentences, but I'm not positive.
I'll put the
I move around a lot too. So, okay. So before I mention my thoughts on the Sikhs part, you mentioned something about animal rights. The word rights. How would you describe what you think of rights?
Well, just the rights to regarding that, just the rights to their life. You know what I mean? Like not being able to exploit them. And I think I agree with you. Like we shouldn't own animals and whatnot. Yeah, I'm not having a cognitive. I'm not able to form the cognitive sentence right now. But yeah, just pretty much, pretty much the just the basic rights to their life, and not to be interfered with, basically.
Okay, well let's break it down to where, and maybe this is where practicable and possible fit in.
Yeah. Well, I agree with the practicable part if depending on where you're from, obviously.
Yeah.
when we're in an areas where we can easily just purchase vegan options, and
Hmm. Well, let's look at
that's very practical.
um. Okay, AV mentioned that's negative rights. Okay, so are you familiar with the difference between positive and negative rights?
Yeah, so my understanding of it is just the rights not to be violated, sort of a thing. I don't know how to I don't know the exact definition of it, but yeah.
Y- Yeah, no, it's complicated because a lot of times various, I guess, what I'd call philosophical terms, we pick up on them as we go. I
Absolutely.
honestly, when people talk about consequentialism and utilitarianism and deontology, I actually prefer just to break down the individual ideas. But just for the sake of this comment being mentioned here, the idea of a positive right would be something that you offer somebody, like when
Hmm.
somebody says something like the right to like healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't be born with the right to healthcare. Somebody would have to give you that. Where a negative right is, it's nobody's giving it to you. They're
Just something they're not
having
taking
the right
away.
exist. Yeah, like that freedom of speech. That's they're not giving you speech. They're not giving you a written thing that you have to say out loud. They just aren't stopping you from doing a thing. So that's what the negative's referring to. So I
Right.
just thought I'd mention that in case that comes in handy while we're talking. Um, so okay, so obviously with this idea of negative rights, we wouldn't want to take away something's right to exist if we knew we were doing so. So if we break it down to something that I'm not sure how you feel about insects, but when we drive our cars, if you look at the front of cars, they're covered in dead insects. So even though it's more of an accident than maybe killing something to eat it.
Mm.
Uh, how do you view the idea of if these insects had rights, we wouldn't drive knowing that we would kill them?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one, I think. But it's definitely different than, intentionally taking the life of someone. It's obviously not a good thing. We'd prefer not to do it. But I suppose, yeah, our society has us driving around, which isn't
Mm-hmm.
really a good
Wait,
excuse. But
mm-hmm.
um, no, I don't think it's good. But yeah, it's definitely different doing it accidentally opposed to doing it intentionally.
Yeah. Well, would it change if it was maybe what somebody would consider on a higher level of sentience? Which I
Like
want to have
running
more
people over.
conversations about that because I don't know what details lead people to think something has a higher level of sentience, but that would be a fun conversation as well. But let's
Right.
imagine. So I'm not sure how Australia is with this, but here in Oregon in the U.S. There's a lot of forest around, so like you'll see a dead raccoon or a dead deer every once in a
Sure.
while. It's not common, but imagine that it was more common. Imagine that you knew that there was a chance you would hit maybe 5 animals a week that were like deer, raccoon, all these things, and they jump out so quick. There's nothing you could do to make this not happen other than
Right.
not drive. But driving that the average likelihood for yourself is going to hit 5, and it's raccoons, deer, and I don't know on Australia. What do you guys have? Kangaroo or something?
Yeah, koalas or something, I
Koalas.
suppose.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so much sadder, but maybe it's just sadder to us because they look cute to us being so far away. Or
Oh,
maybe,
that's a common thought. I think people are all up in
yeah,
arms to save the koalas and stuff, but
yeah.
not
So
for the
so
cows and
how
pigs,
would that
unfortunately.
change it? Like if you kill 5,000 insects a week, but
Mm.
then you might kill 5 koalas or a kangaroo. Would that make you stop driving based on their higher sentient level?
Well, that's I honestly don't know. Like I probably shouldn't distinguish between the two. They're both alive and living, I suppose. And I suppose
Hmm.
it depends. Like I don't know. I don't know the intelligence of all the insects and stuff. I know like bees and stuff can be. They're quite intelligent from what I understand. So you're not going to want to hit them. But would it change if it was like animals, like kangaroos or something? I definitely would have to consider that. Yeah, like perhaps there is a little bit of a speciesism within myself too. Like I look at these sentient beings that I know are sentient, and I don't want to harm them. Um,
Hmm.
it very well may. It very well may. But I
Yeah.
don't want to give a definitive answer on that because I that's something I need to definitely ponder upon.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely worth thinking about. And I guess insects are tricky. So I've heard mixed things, but it seems like the overwhelming consensus is that insects feel pain. But there are many studies that will show insects are so like instinct motivated that they'll have a task they're doing, and if they are like if you crush part of their body and they're still alive,
They'll
they
just
will just keep attempting to do that task. They won't seem
right,
distracted at their body. Something leads scientists to detect that they are having elements of suffering and pain, but like they keep doing what they're doing, and there's somewhere like an insect will be mating with another insect, and the insect it's mating with will start eating it while it's mating with it, and it'll continue its process because it's almost as if they're robotic.
yeah,
And so
right,
that would play a huge role for me because I'm not against like eating bivalves. So they're technically animals. They have eyes and a mouth,
right,
but they have no brain. They have no central nervous system. They can't feel pain. So I'm torn there. But with insects, I don't know if I would keep driving if I was going to hit the raccoons and the deers and the
mm,
koalas. Um, but with the insects, at least my current excuse, and I don't think it's just an excuse, but it is one, is that I'm not sure if I feel that they suffer at a level that makes me care to change such a big part of my life in that way. Like, would
right.
I not want to take my daughter to her gymnastics class because I'm going to kill insects on the way? What quality of life do I want and do I think myself and my loved ones deserve, versus what it can affect? Like, I
Right.
don't think the quality of eating a pizza with pepperoni on it, as much as one might like it, is enough to kill an animal just for our taste pleasure. But being unaware of the detailed thoughts of insects, I just don't think I'm there yet. It might be a human understanding thing.
Yeah, well, I do think like like you said, it's scientifically stated that the insects or most insects don't feel like the sort of things like a mammal might feel, perhaps. Um, so would you change that stance if you found out that these insects felt exactly the same as we did, or the same as a
Mm.
cow did, or something?
Yeah,
Or do
if
you think that driving is too much, too convenient to sort of give up?
yeah, it's tricky. If I could detect a level of suffering that took place that was comparable with like what I would consider a large amount of suffering that I don't want to contribute to,
Mhm.
then yes, I think I'd figure out a good way to change that as much as I could. If I don't know if you've heard me discuss the idea of not knowing if animals, or at least certain animals, have a will to live, and that makes me care less about, like, say there was a cute puppy in a burning building and a person in a burning building. I would
Yeah.
save the person because I have more of an understanding of their will to live. So even though I don't want to take away anything's life, if I were going to stop driving, I would want to know that either my stopping of driving is going to have an effect on suffering, or that that insect has some kind of a will to live.
Right.
And I don't know to what level, and there's a lot of math going into it, because if mixing the idea that this thing I can know is likely to happen, but it is an accident. They just happen to exist in a place where a device that my species created is going to be going through. I'm aware it happened, but I'm not directly intending to do it. That mixed with assuming they don't have a will to live and know of tomorrow, mixed with if we can know it's likely that they die instantly and they're not just halfway dead on the car suffering in agonizing pain,
Yeah.
all those things factor in. But if we get to the level where scientists can tell us like straight up driving causes this amount of pain because most of them don't die instantly,
Mhm.
I would walk to the park more than I would drive to the park. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes life leads us to go further than just the park. So it's a difficult one. But if definitely they are suffering and they have a preference to live their life, then who are we to take that away from them? I suppose would be the statement.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'd be
yeah.
curious. For those of you watching, what do you guys think of that question? I would be curious to see if you guys think what it would take to get you to stop driving, and what your thoughts on the insects. Okay, so let's see. I imagined it will be more nuanced due to legal classification and complexity. But yeah, okay, so let's set insects aside. So we were talking about rights violations. And well, okay, since we're talking about rights violations and somebody else, oh, it was Jeremy. Jeremy asked about pets. I think rights violations might fit in there. One of the biggest issues I have with pets is I have this, I'm kind of torn because we can assume that a pet will have a better life. And let's imagine this is a rescued pet. This dog will have a better life living with a good owner than just being out in the wild and being more likely to die and starve and all these different things. But at the same time, to keep this pet, we have to violate its rights in so many different ways. So let's ignore the right to its freedom. Let's just say that it doesn't care about that. But the other rights violations, I think Jeremy brought this up, but spaying and neutering. We think it's the
Yep.
smartest thing to do because we don't want strays out there that will suffer. We're trying to do a nice thing, but because we created this thing and we're willing to own them and treat it like an acceptable thing in life, we are also removing their testicles and their uterus and changing the entire way their brain thinks based on that. At least I would assume so, that it would be something like the way human stuff works. So anyways, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a tough one because we've bred these animals like to pretty much just be with us at the end of the day. Because I agree, like they probably wouldn't last too long. Like if you sent them out into the wild, and they're sort of been bred for us to. I don't know. I don't want to use the word nurture them, but I suppose I will.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, we take away their rights for freedom. Despite that, and then you wouldn't go up to a person and start cutting off their nuts or spaying them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we probably don't want to continue with like the pet ownership, for lack of a better term. So is that the right thing to do to remove that option? It might very well be, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, we are definitely violating them by doing that. So
Yeah. Well, one
so
thing that just
it's
popped into my head was like, imagine we found some tribe out in like some forest. We didn't know they existed. Let's say it's a tribe of like 1,000 people. And for whatever reason, because of how however the breeding took place, let's imagine they were actually all inbred for thousands of
sure.
years. And so they are very unintelligent, a lot of issues going on, but they're human.
Mhm.
And let's say they don't have a lot of pretty much any advancements that we have, and therefore a lot of them die off and suffer various cases. Would it be acceptable for us to say we recognize that if various humans in Australia and the U.S. Basically took these rescue humans in as pets, we own them, we get to tell them what they can and cannot do, and living with us, we're pretty sure they're going to have a better off life and live longer and be fed better than if they kept living in their tribe. But we don't want them to keep inbreeding. So I'm going to have two of these rescue human pets. So I'm going to remove their uterus and their testicles. It's kind of like the name the trait situation, where if we
Yeah,
if we
for
look
sure.
at why we can't kill a cow to eat it compared to a human, I think maybe we should compare pets to humans, or I mean, maybe we should.
Yeah, that's a fair statement actually. Yeah, if it's good enough for the dogs, then you would imagine that the answer would be it'd be good enough for this tribe of humans as well. But yeah, definitely something to think about. Because yeah, instinctively you want to say no, you don't do that. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I think it could be you could class it a little bit differently, seeing that the pets that we have, we've sort of bred over all these hundreds of years, and they're already in this situation. We're not sort of taking them out of that world, I suppose,
Hmm.
to do that. It doesn't make it right, regardless. I don't think. But
Yeah.
would you agree that it would be a little bit different? Or
Yeah, I think it would be a little different because it would depend on our ability, taking that tribe I was talking about, our ability
hmm,
to reason with them. Because that's the difference between humans and animals. Is we can say, okay, listen up. You know our language now. In this society, if you kill somebody, you go to jail. If you steal, you go to jail. We have our rights and our laws, and you have to listen up. But animals aren't going to listen up. They're deer, cows, whatever. A lion might try to eat a person. They're not going to go, "Oh, I understand these human laws, and I don't want to go to jail." So that would affect it. But so yeah, imagine that we did this tribe thing I'm talking about, and we essentially imagine American slavery, but instead of using any of these people for like plowing the fields and picking cotton and all this stuff, it was just American slavery. But it's this tribe I'm talking about, and it's human pets, and there's no ability to reason with them. Now imagine we've been doing it for years, and it's already happened. So we're not deciding is it okay to do? It's already
right,
happened, and now
right.
we're having to figure out what do we do about it? Do we continue it, or do we figure out the best way for them and beings of the future to do away with it? I really the only thing I can imagine of why it's any different is that we could imagine there's more of an emotional issue with these unintelligent humans. Like it's almost like we think dogs and cats are too stupid um, to fully care.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
a.
yeah. Like what would we do if it had
Oh,
been in place? Let's say for 100 years, it's in place, and some people like to have they like to have this pet human for their kids to play with. That pet human can't leave the house whenever it wants, but it's not forced to work or anything. It's not a nanny or anything. It just is there for you to put in your lap to play with, or to
so
run around in the backyard
what
with.
was the animal we were talking about? I missed that.
Oh, I said human.
Human. Okay. Okay.
The
Yeah.
tribal people, and we've had them for hundreds of years.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. We're still on the human.
yeah, and they can't live on their own. They're kind of unintelligent. Um, this is what I would say we should do, and this is kind of what I think I would put in place today. I think. And Gigi in the audience, don't be mad about this. Gigi here, one of my favorite people to talk to on my
I like his
channel.
comment on the
We
chastity belts.
oh, I didn't get there yet, but we always talk about animal stuff because Gigi, I believe, has some cats and does not like my takes on pets. But this is what I think we should do. This is probably what is the most humane. Um, I think we should take the pets. We should take the domesticated cats and dogs, and maybe some other ones. We should have a government-funded giant sanctuary, and we should either decide, do we put these pets in the sanctuary and make it illegal to own any animals, and all the ones that are owned go to the sanctuary, and if somebody's found with one, there would be legal trouble. But whatever happens with them on the sanctuary, if they reproduce on their own, that's great. There's a lot of species that can't, like Frenchies, the French bulldogs, they cannot breed on their own. They are incapable, so they have to be yeah. And so we could say that we don't want to stop them from breeding because we'll leave it to nature. They can kind of be rewilded to this sanctuary, or we spay and neuter every single one of them and put them in the sanctuary, let them live out their lives the best they can. People can come and see them like a one standing spot to see this kind of a zoo, but without tiny cages. And then they die off or get rewilded. And I think that's what we would do with the human tribe too. We would say, we would either decide we don't want them to keep multiplying because they're inbreeding and they're too unintelligent and there's no fixing that. So we would spay and neuter all of these tribal humans, and then we would let them kind of do their own tribal thing in this sanctuary area, or we would let them keep procreating, but in a sanctuary area. Yeah.
Let's have a think about that. So the two options, we spay them in a sanctuary and put them in a sanctuary, or we let them procreate in the sanctuary and then. Personally, I'd rather just leave the tribe where they are and not interfere with them. As for the pet, seeing that, and you're saying that we've already done this for a certain amount of time anyway, so there's no going back from what we've already done.
Yeah, it'd be removing the tribe from human ownership or not. And so essentially it'd be what you're saying. You would leave the tribe where they were initially. So to fix the problem, we would remove them from human ownership and put them where they were initially, which is kind of what we have with dogs and cats. Although I have been told that cats kind of domesticated themselves, and that's a whole another complicated thing. But if you just look at
something like that, hey.
Yeah, if you just look at situations that we've domesticated, so I guess dogs, then yeah, I would say the best bet is something like rewilding them or a sanctuary of sorts. But even if we do that, what's likely in a lot of ways a good thing, which is rescuing them and giving them a good home, we are perpetuating this idea. We are normalizing this idea of taking this animal that in nature would have its normal like sex drives and all kinds of different things. We're removing parts of its body and we are forcing it to be in a place. A lot of people will they'll be the nicest pet owner, but they go to work and they're the only ones that live in the apartment or the house, and the animal has to be cooped up all day long. And
yes,
it really comes down to their cognitive ability. How much do they likely hate being trapped?
Yeah, well, obviously we can't read their mind, but no, having their freedom to do whatever they want. And then, but the idea of spaying them all or cutting off their nuts, it seems immoral, doesn't it? Like people do that, but it still seems wrong whether it's in the human or animal context. I don't know what the ramifications would be for separating the two sexes and having two sanctuaries.
That'd be interesting.
Because then you let them live out their lives, and then that's it. At the end of the day, they don't breed anymore. They don't, and then the idea of pet ownership it comes to an end. What do you? Do you think that would be a reasonable?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine like what would I rather be castrated and live amongst women, or not castrated and live only amongst men? I
know it's not ideal no matter which way you look at it.
No, you're fine. I'm just trying to imagine if there is any necessary part to the sexes intermingling.
I'll just be 1 second. Just gonna take care of something.
Oh yeah, you're good. Go for it. Okay, while he takes care of some things, I'm going to respond to some things in here. Vegan Pundit, I meant to get to your comment. You said you stopped driving due to insect slaughter for 10 years. I'm glad you noted your typo, because I was going over and over that trying to figure that out.
Apologies for that.
Oh, you're fine. I was just reading Vegan Pundit's comment to our last topic, which was... he said that he stopped driving due to insect slaughter about 10 years ago. And he's been figuring out how to put that into his life. And that's really cool. I'm not at that level. Yet. I have not been convinced. Maybe I need to read more studies about insects, but I have not been convinced about that. But let me try to get to some of the comments about the animal part we're talking about. We are responsible for them, so we should look after them. I agree. I agree in a sense. I agree that since we domesticated them, we should figure out the best approach to the future. Now, if we could press a button and know there would be zero domesticated animal breeding from here on out, then I say the best thing to do is leave animals right where they're at. But when you factor in all the rescue animals that are right where they're at, good, loving homes, and those ones are going to have the best possible future ever. But then also we have all the other domesticated animals that are going to be bred, and there's going to be more and more puppies after puppies and kittens after kittens. And this domestication of these animals, which is not a good thing, will keep continuing. That's where the problem is. So we have to figure out a solution that fixes that bad part. But owners that are great with their pets, that's not the bad part.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's so many abandoned pets as well. At the end of the day, you go down to the animal shelters. There's hundreds of abandoned dogs and cats. You know, people get these animals because most people they think they want to look after an animal, and then they get bored of it, and then they just F it off.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the bigger issues.
Well, and the only way to make that go away, the only way that I can think of whatsoever, is to do the thing I'm talking about with the sanctuary, where once it becomes illegal to own them, then you won't have a situation where people think they want this one because it's cute. They buy it, they get sick of it when it gets a year older, and then they put it out on the street. You just wouldn't have that anymore. And anytime somebody found a stray one that wandered into our towns and cities, there would be people that come, they pick it up, and they take it to the sanctuary. And we would just have a set thing that we do.
Right.
And I like that. Let's see. Vegan Pundit said, what about feeding squirrels, birds, etc., if that led them to becoming domesticated? Okay, so this is kind of interesting. When I first started being against pet ownership, I kept challenging myself, and I came up with the closest cases to pets that I think is morally acceptable. And it's something like this. If you're out in the forest, you build a cabin. Your cabin has a doorway, but not a door. It's completely wide open. Some wild animals, let's say a wild dog, comes up to you and you play with this dog. The dog likes you. When you go into your house, the dog goes in. The door is not shut. It's not forced to go in. It can leave whenever it wants, but it can also hang out with you as long as it wants, even for years. That is totally fine. In a society where you have cars and you let an animal outside, you're letting it potentially get hit by cars that it can't understand. And so I think there's an issue there where if squirrels, which also can get hit by cars, but seem to be very crafty and never get hit by cars, if they come to you and you happen to be holding some nuts or seeds that are healthy for them, and they eat it and they like them and they want to become friends with you. I've seen a video of a guy that like nursed a squirrel back to health, and then the squirrel would keep coming back to him and play with him. That's great. Never lock it into your house.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Yeah. So you think, so you agree that feeding the squirrels okay then?
Yeah, I mean,
but would you say it would be different depending on the animal, or?
I mean, sort of, because one element would be health. Now, if the squirrel can come and go, the squirrel can choose to eat unhealthy things, and that's not your fault. It's going to smell things out and decide what to eat. The problem with pets oftentimes is they're going to eat what you feed them because they have no other option. And so I think there is an issue with feeding them there. So if we're talking about animals like squirrels or any animal that comes up and eats from something you have, that I don't think that's your fault. So I don't think that's a bad thing. So it doesn't have to be a squirrel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I wonder though, like I think it would depend on what you're feeding it as well. Like, cause you kind of don't want to sort of, get it used to eating an unhealthy food, I suppose.
Yeah.
if you can help it. So if you're feeding it something that it's already getting in the wild or something, I think that's probably preferable.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's this saying that the only animals that are overweight are humans and the animals that humans feed. So,
Yeah,
so livestock get overweight, dogs and cats get overweight, and it's because every other animal in the world finds its natural food sources in nature.
yeah,
They eat until they're full and then they stop. But when humans have figured out how to process foods and create them, whether it's dog foods that are this unnatural, hard thing that's filled with all this stuff that will be bad for their health. And so it's not even just making them overweight, it's making them, kind of like humans. If a human's unhealthy, then they'll have like stomach aches and be sluggish, fatigued, all these different things. I think the
yeah.
same thing happens with animals. So I do have my separations from, like, if I think something is kind of bad and people shouldn't do it, which it would be feeding an animal like a human made unhealthy thing, and something that I would consider, I guess, sort of a rights violation, where I wouldn't consider it a rights violation if an animal came up and just happened to be accepting of eating this thing you're not forcing it to eat, but I would consider it not ideal.
Right, right. Okay, yeah. No, I totally get that for sure.
Let's see. Um, he said, I'm pretty chummy with the squirrel I met at work. Gigi said, I'm not convinced on feeding wild animals. Could you cause harm if they became dependent on you and you had to stop? Yeah, I mean, those things are complicated. I don't think you owe anything like it becoming dependent on you. Like, imagine an animal that would have just starved to death in nature, but because you go on hikes and the same animal comes up to you every time you go on this hike and you feed it,
Yeah,
it might live longer because you're feeding it. And then if you stopped and it was dependent on you and it dies, I don't think that's like really your fault. You kind of kept it alive longer than it would have, but you can't control what happens in nature. You can only control what happens when you lock something in your house, I think.
that's fair. That's fair. Though sometimes, yeah, you can't when you do interfere with nature. I've seen some like documentaries and stuff. They do they change their temperament or something. But I think
Yeah.
you echoed it pretty well. So you
Yeah.
said it pretty well.
Okay, Gigi said, would you cause more to breed and affect other species? So that might be referring to the two options of the sanctuary, where one was letting it breed. Um, when it comes to something existing in nature, whether it's a human doing something they probably shouldn't have, like introducing an animal to another environment, like some people will bring an animal over from like Asia, and then when that gets introduced to like the US, it might wipe out a handful of species of birds or something like that. um, sure, our ability to see outcomes and know that something's not ideal is fine. In my mind, I haven't been convinced of anything other than we should keep our distance from animals. So if we were to like let a bunch of animals go into a sanctuary, and let's say in this sanctuary there were other animals, and then because of the ability for these cats and dogs to breed, like half the breeds of dogs would overpopulate and maybe kill the other dogs and kill some of the natural living animals in there. Like, when that stuff takes place, I haven't been convinced that we should interfere, even if it happened due to our interference. Um, Nature's going to do its thing, even if we played a small role to start it off. But yeah,
Hmm. That's a tough one. Hmm.
let's
What,
see.
any other questions or?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, somebody said it started and they hadn't noticed. Yeah, turning veganese. Okay,
Oh,
hey
hey,
Adrian.
AJ.
Okay. Unsure your idea would work in practice. In theory, maybe. I don't like the term ownership. Prefer care or something like that. Owner. Okay.
Hmm. I
I
agree.
felt really bad when we spayed our dog. Was before I was vegan. Um, let's see. There we go. I do have a car now, but only drive maybe twice a week. I had a car for 2 years. We should get rid of breeders. Just have rescue pets. Okay, so let's try to figure out how that could work out in real life. How can we get rid of breeders? It, so breeding right now, I don't know if there are any laws involving breeding, but
I think there should be, but yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, I wonder how that would play out. Like, would it be a law like so? What if you have some animals and somebody says that you're a breeder, and then the police go and they say, "Hey, okay, you got these dogs. This one's pregnant. You're breeding. You're in trouble." And then they go, "Oh, we're not breeders. I mean, we have these animals and they're not spayed or neutered, so they are procreating."
Mm.
But so like the detail of it, if we wanted to stop breeders, it almost might have to come down to the law would be that an animal has to be spayed or neutered. Which is kind of fucked up. Like that's a big part of what I
It's
don't think
it's
we should be
it's
doing to them.
it's fucked up no matter which way you're looking at it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um. Yeah. So yeah, what you're saying is 100% right. Yeah, these people they can have loopholes for days to get around the
Hmm.
breeding, such as saying, yeah, well, we didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened. And then yeah, so I think you do start, I suppose, with banning the breeding process, but then we have to find other ways to get around that too. And then, but all the things we're looking at, one way or another,
Hmm.
some of the animals' rights are going to be violated. So
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it needs to be something like how like foster care or adoption or something like that works, where if somebody has an animal, it has to be documented because we can recognize these animals deserve respect. They deserve to be treated well. So it has to be documented if your household has a pet, and then there might be people that have to come and check on that pet. You have to they
I
check its
think, yeah,
health.
I like that.
Something
Yeah,
like that. And any pet that is not documented, um, if you have that pet, then maybe you get a fine. So it would encourage people to not break the law when it comes to this type of thing. But I don't know how that would factor in if an animal like gave birth. Would it be a thing where then you would have to go in and have that documented?
yeah.
Because the fact that animals can suffer, I really think we owe more to them than just crossing our fingers that owners are going to be good to them.
No, and
Um,
that's
yeah,
absolutely true because
because
owners,
humans can have like foster kids and whatnot, but no kid's going to go unchecked on, or at least they
absolutely.
shouldn't. And but with ownership, we just like I'm sure everybody I know that owns animals, they treat their animals very well. But super sadistic people could own a pet legally and just like stab it all the time to watch some blood come out, but then they keep it
Yeah,
alive, and 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 uh, and we're not checking up on that.
and
And I
this,
and I
yeah,
feel like it's kind of where we're at in like human growth and progress, where the future has to have some more detail. It has to have more protection, I think.
yeah, for all animals. But you're 100% right. I mean, these animals, they go into homes without knowing who these humans are, and they could be abused. I mean, we've all read the stories about people just leaving their dogs at home for freaking like a month on end without food or water, and um, yeah. But what is the solution to that? Because every time you find a solution, then there's another issue, and then
Hmm.
the only thing that we need to aim to is removing you know ownership, as we say, of animals. Like I agree with you, we shouldn't keep animals in our house.
Yeah. Well,
But I don't know what the overall solution is.
yeah. Well, and part of the problem is when you have a lot of issues, we focus on the ones that are most important to us, and there's only so many you can focus on, which is why we probably focus on not eating animals and
Yeah.
we don't focus on cars hitting insects. Whereas in a perfect vegan world where nobody ate animals anymore, nobody had pets anymore, then we'd start to look at things like cars hitting insects. So let's
Yeah.
imagine a world where it becomes illegal to kill and eat animals, illegal to take their milk and drink it, illegal to take their eggs. And now imagine in this world, a lot of people want to have cows and chickens and stuff like that as pets. So the suffering and the death will be cut down upon a lot because a lot of people wouldn't be willing to kill the animals they want to eat. But there are plenty of people that would kill the animals they want to eat. So in the same way that, like, right now I have 3 rescue guinea pigs. If
Yeah,
I
I've
like
seen
the
you guinea
taste
pigs.
of guinea pigs, I could go and kill them right now and eat them.
Absolutely. Something's,
And
yeah.
as long as nobody caught me, I wouldn't get in trouble by any laws. And so in a perfect vegan world, at least with the farming aspect taken care of, if people just had cows and chickens that they like raised on their property and they killed and ate them themselves, so they couldn't sell it to stores or anything. But as long as nobody came around and there were no cameras set up catching them kill a cow. So really, a vegan that is in favor of owning rescue pets must only be in favor of it, knowing how unlikely it is for pet owners to eat cats and dogs. That must be the only reason, right? Like, because if there was a likelihood of people eating cats and dogs the way they eat cows, I think we would start questioning if people should own them.
I do. Yeah. I wonder if that's true. I don't know. I'm sure. I'm sure it does happen though. Like from time to time, people, like you said, people are stabbing could be stabbing their dogs and stuff. So what are you asking? Like, is that the reason we have these animals, or
Oh, I
rather
guess I
than?
wasn't asking something. I was mostly just
Sorry,
like
you're
thinking
making a
out loud.
statement. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's
Um,
fair.
uh,
Um,
yeah.
but oh, hang on, thought I lost you for a second.
Oh no, I'm here. What's
Oh,
up?
there you go. All right, cool. Now I lost my train of thought. Um, yeah. So you mentioned a future world where it's all vegan already, or for the most part, we've abolished all the most horrible things. Um, so are we looking to add extra rights to other animals, or are we wanting to, like the rescue cows or something? Are we wanting to stop that from happening, or is that what we're
Yeah.
getting at?
I mean, so my ultimate goal, as far as what I think sentient beings deserve, I think, would be something like us not interfering with them at
Yeah,
all. So we wouldn't have any domesticated animals, no fish, no snakes, none of that stuff. But, we are animals as well, in the same sense that a beaver chews down a tree to make a dam.
yeah,
There might have been animals that wanted to live in that tree, but the beaver doesn't give a shit because it wants to make its own. And it's all like we're fighting to survive. So humans are going to make their societies. I don't think we need to change that. We can do what we want. But the areas that we don't take over, I think we should respect those animals enough to have fences that make deer not go into our roads, and we
yeah,
don't have domesticated animals. So outside of a documentary film team going to film nature, because I please don't stop doing that. I love watching nature documentaries on Netflix. But outside of going out and filming nature, I mostly don't think we should interfere in any way. And it might just take a while to get to that point. Anybody that owns animals now and views them as family, I think they should definitely have a set amount of time before like a law went into place. But I don't think I don't think it can be morally acceptable to own an animal in a perfect world. The counter to this is that if you are out in nature and and veterinarians exist and you find an animal that got harmed and it is going to die and you can nurse it back to health, is it more moral to take that animal, like say a panda broke its leg? Should you put it out of its misery, even though it's not necessarily likely to, it could easily survive, but you could put it out of its misery, or you could just leave it there and let it take its course and it has a 90% chance of dying, or it could maybe figure out a way to survive? Or do you take it to our society, have a vet fix it up, but then if it can't be put back in the wild, it has to be in the best sanctuary zoo type thing?
Oh God.
Part of me thinks we should leave nature to nature. If it dies, it dies. I don't know.
Yeah, so instinctually you want to just help the animal, I think. Like you want to take it, you want to help it, but then we are interfering with it and taking its give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
Yeah, you're good. Let's see. Ooh, a minute has gone by, so maybe you're already gone, but bye, Gigi. If you have not gone, which I think you have, but there was a message that you wrote that you really wanted me to respond to that I didn't get a chance to comment on a video a couple days ago. So if you could put that somewhere in my community post area or just send me an email. I definitely like the idea of getting back to everybody's questions, and I think your questions are incredible. Vegan Pundit said something about, did you see the story about the person in England that killed and ate her hamster? She posted on social media. I think she got sentenced to jail time. Yeah, it's kind of tricky. It's weird that we view things like that. Like people can eat burgers that come from cows, but they can't eat their own hamster. It's, I think, oh, Cameron, can you hear me? Oh, it's quiet. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Cool. Apologies.
Turning Veganese said, if animal, do not touch. As far as vegan versus vegan infighting, not infighting, but having differences of opinion.
Yeah.
So far, almost everything I've seen with Turning Veganese, we do disagree on, and we're going to be talking day after tomorrow.
I think, yeah.
And I'm looking forward. I think it's so tomorrow's Sunday for you. We're going to be talking Sunday our time, so I think it'll be Monday for you.
I'll have to figure out what time it is. Very well.
But yeah, we disagree on a handful of approaches, and I've noticed, especially in the comments on the vegan gains debate. But I mean, being vegan is a great way to be. So even if we disagree, I'm glad you don't harm animals.
Well, I think it's good to like exchange the difference of opinions anyway. It can only help the movement moving forward. So
yeah, well,
yeah, both of you have amazing points.
Stances.
So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I think as long as we all sort of band together when it counts, that's the main thing.
Yeah. But yeah, in this case, this is something I strongly agree with, which is the if animal don't touch. I agree with this. The thing I was talking about when you stepped away for a second was Vegan Pundit said, did you see the thing about the person in England that killed and ate their hamster? He thinks that they got some jail time. And I think it's kind of strange that we can eat burgers and oh yes, Turning Veganese said we at least agree on no pet ownership. Yes, we do. I feel like part of me wants a society to be more consistent and say if you can eat a cow, you can eat a hamster and eat a dog. But another part of me just wants as much legislation as possible to protect things that can be harmed. So.
Well, I think the more you get people to think about, the individual animal and the life that was taken away from them, maybe the more that they'll start thinking about these animals that they're eating. So I think every step in the right directions for the animals is it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess one last thought on this thing about the Turning Veganese and the pet ownership thing. Me talking to other vegans, I'll talk about the detail of pet ownership. If I'm talking to somebody that's newly interested in vegan and they own a pet, I wouldn't go anywhere near talking about pet ownership because I don't like the movement to look bad. And it's not that I'm willing to lie. It's not like I'm lying by omission by not bringing it up. It's that we all have a lot of things we care about, and we only have so much time to go over the detail of things we care about. So in the same sense that I'm guessing I'm guessing this, and I could be wrong, but Turning Veganese, if he or AJ, if he was doing a table talk with a non-vegan, and he was doing what I call the Joey Carbstrong extremist thing, like talking about like, well, I guess this part's not extreme, but talking about how we shouldn't eat animals or any animal products whatsoever, and it's like kind of an all or nothing approach. But if you aren't going to tell them that part of the all or nothing is that they can't own pets, then I guess that's just how I view the idea of doing the reductionist thing. Because if you're saying that you want somebody to not kill and eat and wear animal products, but you're not talking about the pets thing, but you think the pet thing, then that's reduction. That's reduction of the animal harm, and it's not full stopping of animal harms, because we're picking what sounds best and what's likely to win people over. So I guess that's kind of what I wish I could get people to either convince me I'm wrong or see where I'm coming from. Where if somebody says like, I'm not going to go vegan, but I'll cut back, I'll eat like 50%. And then I would pat them on the back and say, that's good of you. Where Vegan Gains last night told me that's a horrible thing. You shouldn't applaud somebody for going halfway. Then why should we applaud somebody for cutting out meat, dairy, and eggs, but not cutting out pet ownership? There's always a line. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, everyone's got their line. That's true, actually. No, well, I didn't actually. I never thought about it like that. Like that is technically reduction when you think about it. But I think we like to speak about, you know, the injustice in the slaughterhouses and the factory farms and all that stuff, because that is like that's the stuff that's happening on the trillions every single year. And I know the number's not exactly the most important part, but
what is the most important part to you?
Well, it's hard to explain. It's definitely like it's the individuals who are dying. So if there was like one animal dying per year just so someone could eat a steak, I still think that's still a terrible injustice. But,
kind of like David was telling me about the bullfighting. I don't know if you watched the whole talk with David. It was like 3 hours, but toward the end we were talking about bullfighting, and it was about, he was pointing out that like maybe 60 cows in one country might die a year from bullfighting, which is such a small number compared to the billions for eating. And so I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting aspect of like what the numbers mean, but like, I don't know. I guess for me, I care so much more about the suffering than the death itself.
You do, yeah.
Do you care more about the death, or is it so combined that you can't even?
It's so combined. It is. It's very combined, I think, because I get an emotional response like every time I see the footage, you know, inside those places. So even if they weren't killed at the end, that would still be absolutely atrocious, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's both. I mean, even if you take the life of the animal who grew up on like a pasture or whatever, you still you're sending it to a place where it's going to be absolutely terrified. It's going, he or she is going to be, you know, bolted in the head or have their throat slit. It's nobody would put up with that in a human context. So
no, it's depressing for sure. I guess I care about it, the sufferings to such an extreme more than the rest, because I know what suffering feels like, and it's not good. I think we all know it's not good. I guess knowing that something can legally be killed for others to consume, I can't wrap my head around the idea of like, I don't know about like, so when you have the little baby chicks going into the grinder and they're ground up or whatever, it's such a disturbing image. But
you
it's
don't
like,
think that's as bad.
It's like they're there, and then within seconds they're gone. If they get put on, if they're born, checked, put on a conveyor belt, go down, ground up, and they're alive no more than like 5-10 minutes. They have less time to be stressed than, say, a pig put into a truck that has to be driven from one state to another state, and they don't like being on these tires going, you know, they're stressed out, they're freaking out, their adrenaline's going. every element of stress and suffering and all these different things. I would just want, like, if I knew they were going to die and I could hold them during the time they'd be stressed, and I don't know if they care about being held by Carson, the reasonable vegan, but if I could like hold them and like comfort them until their death, I would. I wouldn't say they're going to die, so I don't need to hold and comfort them. I would put my focus into if me petting it could like relax its stress levels. But I wouldn't need to do that with chicks going down a conveyor belt and getting ground up. I wish we didn't like hatch so many chicks to have this egg industry go the way it goes. But if I could put into legislation some changes, if I made a list of 10 changes, most of them wouldn't involve their death. It would involve no pig farmers can cut off the tails of pigs. No pig farmers can cut out the teeth of pigs. And then because of those rules, and it would be even worse to have pigs eating other pig tails, you would have to say how much room a pig must have allotted to it in a designated area. That would be another law that would be in there. So if somebody wanted to have a pig farm, they couldn't expand their quantity of pigs to their area in a way that led to these harms. And that, I feel like that's what's going to lead to a vegan world, is regulation slowly changing things.
Yeah, I suppose it all comes down to legislations and stuff to begin with. But I think we as individuals still want to promote veganism as a whole rather than just the suffering sort of thing. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. Obviously, every step in the right direction, so more space for the pigs, is better, but it's still not good at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's good. It's good for those individual pigs, though. Like it's good.
It's better for those individual pigs. I don't think it's good though. But yeah, no, you go.
I was just going to point out. It's so funny. I don't know if it's always Vegan Pundit or if it's just everybody that catches me on this mistake.
What about
every time I talk about pigs, I talk about the teeth getting cut off and the tails, and I forget to mention that they get the balls getting cut off. I don't know if I say that just to be more tactful. We're vegan, so we can't be tactful. But I think something. I don't know why it would disturb me more, teeth and tails getting cut, than testicles. But for some reason, I never go to the testicle element. But that's true. Those are removed, and that's not good.
Pain relief.
Let's see. Okay, turning veganese. God, I hate that. I always want to say veganese.
Veganese. Just say it 100 times.
Yeah, on the pet thing, if they already have a companion animal who's already used to that family, and has been at home for months or years, I would not say get rid of the pet because ownership is wrong. However, I would say don't get any more pets after that one dies, and if they don't even have a pet yet, don't get one. Yeah, that's the complicated thing. Yeah, I wouldn't find it reasonable for me to tell pet owners to get rid of their pet that they're used to, but it
could also cause the animal some stress too, I think, like because it's so used to being part of that family and whatnot. It could definitely cause them some stress. So I definitely see where veganese is coming from.
I do not think there is a way out of that. The closest way out of that would be doing the sanctuary thing I talked about, where all domesticated animals go there and it's illegal to own domesticated animals, with a caveat of you have a certain amount of time. We can imagine like the average lifespan of a pet currently owned. And let's say we gave 5 years. So let's say that law went into place today, 2023. It'd be on this day in 2028. Nobody can have a pet. But until then, you can slowly start working towards people having less pets and like keeping your pet until it like dies out. And it'd probably be something like that for farmers too, if we made it illegal to raise and eat animals. If we'd either have to do some kind of a buyback program, Or we'd have to say by this year, um, you can't have a farm with animals anymore. So the people that have the animals now would butcher them and do all the things they do, but they wouldn't breed more into existence because they know at a certain date it would be illegal and they'd get fines if they had it. It sounds depressing, but almost everything in history has something like that, like slavery. I think New York was one of the best states on slavery, and they had a situation where they said, any slave you currently own that is under the age of 28, by the time they reach 28, they are freed. And this whole thing where by a certain year, every slave
I
is
didn't know
freed.
about all that.
And yeah. And it's just one of those things where, realistically, in the world where you have rules, if you change them, you have to do something that doesn't disrupt everything so much, no matter how bad it might sound.
Yeah, well, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not going to end pretty, no matter how soon or far away the outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Animals are going to die, and yeah, I suppose you just stop breeding them. Although that said, that's probably a kind thing anyway, because it's not like they're breeding due to their own choices. So
Yeah, I would say as much as I like to be relaxed with what people do, I would say it's probably a fair bet that if you know somebody that is an animal breeder, it's reasonable to stop being friends with them. To say,
I think
I
that's
want you
fair.
to
Yeah.
I want you to stop this act, or I can't be around you. But it's complicated. I think one of the worst things humans do that they legally do to each other is circumcising babies. And
Oh yeah.
but I know plenty of people that they think that's the right thing to do, and they do it. Friends and family, where I see the kids all the time that I know that has happened to, and I don't say I'm going to stop being friends with you, because there is something that's complicated when there's when there's not a law against the thing you're concerned about. You just have to decide who you're willing to push out of your life or not, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It is a complicated one because, like you said, the law is on the side of doing that for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wouldn't speak for an individual, but I think it would be fair if you felt, yep, I am against this, so I want to distance myself from people who do that sort of a thing. Like you would probably distance yourself from someone who likes to bash people or something like that, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, the difference is the legality, I suppose. But obviously, it doesn't make it moral.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't been in a situation where I've known someone who does that. I think that's typically a religious thing, isn't it? Um,
Yeah, in America, it's just a
or is it a
more of
health
an,
thing?
I think it just became
Hygiene.
popular. Where, so
Right.
with Jewish people, it's a religious thing. I believe it started in America. It was like the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it started off as a religious thing to get boys to stop masturbating, because doing
Oh,
that element makes it
does that make it
makes you
more
have to
difficult? Does
you
it?
have to have products to do it. Where
Right.
anyways, it's awkward to talk about the topic, but but then it just became a thing where it's the popular thing. So now I think in the past like 10 years, it's about 55 to 60% of babies are not circumcised in the US, where about
Oh, wow.
20 to 30 years ago, it was like 90 to 95% were circumcised. So it's trending the other direction. Thank God. I wish there was a law in place stopping it from happening. Same thing with the millions of girls that get the female circumcision in other countries.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a rare thing where it's like America and maybe areas in the UK.
Mm.
It's more common than other places. But yeah, it's such a strange trend.
Yeah, it's not a big conversation that sort of comes up.
Yeah,
Not in the circles that I've been part of anyway, but
yeah.
yeah, it's still
Um,
mutilation of a person. So
yeah. I always compare it to like tattooing. Like if
mm,
like you might have tribes that will like do like a tribal tattoo on a baby's
mm,
face as a tradition or something. But in a society where we respect people's, I guess, bodily autonomy,
yeah,
I think anything that's permanent like that, it should be made illegal to do that
mm,
until they're old enough to choose
Absolutely.
that
If
themselves.
they want to cut that little bit of skin off when they're adults, that's their choice. But yeah, they should
Yeah.
be forced to have a tattoo on their face or have their
Yeah.
fingers snipped when they're children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't judge anyone if they associated with someone who did that, but I would judge the family who do that, or the person who made that decision.
Yeah. Okay, so Vegan Dawn said, this was about something a little while back, said feeding wild
Yeah.
animals may cause them to lose their instincts gradually. If we
Yeah.
feed them the wrong thing, it can be devastating. Like ducks, white bread, yeah, they become violent. And I don't know if we're allowed to say that word anymore on YouTube, but I think
Yeah.
people say R or grapes. I'll just say it
Yeah.
just to find out if we get
A
stuff
grape.
deleted. But violent and rapes the females. Interesting. The white bread would make the male ducks do that. That's interesting.
I didn't know
Um,
that, eh?
yeah, but yeah. Knowing something is unhealthy for an animal, I I always assumed that animals would only eat what naturally they would want to eat, like they kind of smell out the vitamins or something. Um, but I mean, clearly, yeah, we do have that issue with like ducks and bread. And I remember when I was a kid and went to the zoo, I would feed white bread to giraffes. And I
Oh,
remember there was something in the news about somebody was feeding bread to a giraffe, and the giraffe got the plastic bag from the bread and choked to death. And so yeah, we should stop meddling in those ways, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're probably at a good wrapping up point. Any
Sure.
last thoughts you want to throw out? Anything been on your mind specifically about veganism?
Oh, it's always on my mind. It's sort of hard to sort of make a cognitive sentence out of it, though. Um, no, I just think we all need to, do our part and try and spread the word in, the best way that we know how to do. Like, obviously, we're going to have some disagreements within the community, but I think we should all still, try to work together as much as we can and, make a difference for the animals in the best way that our personalities can do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, I'm
yeah,
with you.
no, I look forward to seeing you and AJ's conversation tomorrow, especially seeing that you guys disagree so much.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, and I do want to say, anybody watching this that is not already subscribed to Vegan for Kindness, go find him, subscribe. I'll put a link to his channel in the description when I get a chance. And yeah, let's keep having conversations, and let's try to find non-vegans to have conversations with. We can
That's
even
I
do two
completely
vegans and two non-vegans. Just because that's really what it's about. It's spreading messages, getting ideas, and yeah. And then separately from that, anybody listening, go find Turning Veganese and subscribe to him. Check out his videos, and I'll be talking to him in 2 days. And then Vegan Pundit, you can find a conversation I had with him a couple days ago. And subscribe to his channel, although I don't think there's any content up yet. There will be vegan
yeah,
content soon.
been wondering about that actually. Vegan pundit, when's the content coming?
Yeah, I think it's coming soon. I need to send him the file for the conversation we had, and
Thank you, AJ.
yeah, let's see if to be clear in the instructions. Yeah. And yeah, plenty of basically in. Unless you have reason to not subscribe to a certain vegan, I would recommend going and finding as many vegan channels as you can, hitting subscribe, clicking like on their videos. Help grow these channels so these people can share the messages as much as possible. Even if you don't have much interest in watching the videos, the more subscriptions somebody gets, the more likes people get. It gets in the algorithm, and it gets people talking about these things and normalizing it. We need to normalize veganism. So find Christina Van Beek. She's really good to check out her stuff. But there's people I strongly disagree with that I also subscribe to, like Vegan Gains. I do not subscribe to that vegan teacher. I think she's harmful to a
I
level
haven't,
that I stay away.
I
What
haven't
about you?
actually watched her content yet.
Oh,
I
okay.
should probably get around to it so I can form my own opinion on that vegan teacher.
Yeah, you should
Um,
totally do it.
I sort of focus on the smaller channels.
Hmm.
than the bigger channels, I think, except for like Joey Carbstrong and Earthling Ed. The big one, the really big ones
Yeah.
I watch. But yeah, the mid ones, yeah, I sort of miss out of them for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's all about conversations because I really think
Yeah.
that's how any change happens in the world. Is we have politicians that put laws in place, and they kind of in a big way have to see what the regular people want, and that's how changes happen over time. People, gay marriage comes into place, interracial marriage comes into place, ending things like slavery. All these things change because over time people discuss these morals and it becomes more popular. So if we have conversations with all kinds of people, even vegetarians, every vegans like to hate on vegetarians, but let's bring them in and maybe we can switch them over on small little topics. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's all about conversations and especially face to face, like even on a computer, but where we can see each other's faces and treat
Mm.
each other with respect. Um, so yeah, good stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that should be a big thing amongst the vegan community. Actually, making videos like you make with the meat eaters, with the vegetarians, and trying to convert them in those videos. And then I think doing that, maybe we can keep watching the content back and seeing what works and what doesn't work,
yeah,
and you can do it on a higher scale this way.
yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. Awesome, good stuff. Well, it was great talking, and
oh, it's a pleasure, mate. Absolutely a pleasure meeting you, mate.
yep. All right, I'll see you around. Take care.
Take care, mate.
All right, thanks for watching, guys.